Why, yes. Yes, I have. Hi guys, and welcome. Today is something of a sad day because my favourite all-time coffee maker, the Aeropress, today is sad because this is now being retired as my go-to travel coffee maker. Why is that, I hear you ask? Why is that? I'm glad you asked. It's because it's been replaced with this. Now what is this, I hear you ask? What is it? I'm glad you asked. It's an Aeropress Go. It's essentially an Aeropress, but go-ier. Let me explain. Let's get to the bench, we'll unbox it, we'll take a look at the contents. So here on the bench is the new Aeropress Go. What this is a more compact, travel-friendly version of the regular Aeropress, and it incorporates everything essential into one handy travel cup or beaker. So we'll open the box. The box, much like the old Aeropress, is minimal packaging, which is a feature that I really liked about the old Aeropress, and obviously being cardboard it's entirely recyclable, so that's nice. Inside the box we lift out the whole unit. The only additional things inside here are a packet of filters, which are just your standard Aeropress paper filters. The only other thing in there are a set of instructions, which, if you're familiar with the Aeropress instructions, are very straightforward. So this, as you can see, is smaller than this, and essentially what they've done is they've kept the diameter, which is good because that means the papers are the same, and it means the rubber plunger is the same for replacement purposes. Good feature. But they've shortened it and they've changed the shape of this very slightly so that the whole thing sits inside this nifty little travel cup. So you've got a travel cup or beaker with which is a really nice rigid plastic with a press-on rubber cap. So that's nice as well because it means you can brew your coffee into that and put the cap on to keep it warm. Inside the press-on rubber cap you have this, which at first glance looks like it might be a coaster. And indeed you could actually use that as a coaster, but what it is, if I can figure out which way to open it, here we go, is a filter paper holder. And this I believe holds 5 or 6 filter papers, which for travel purposes is more than enough. As I say, you can get several uses out of one paper, and it's no hardship to throw a few extra ones in a plastic bag or something if you want to do so. So nice little one, fits inside the lid like so. You have the cap, which is essentially the same as this, slightly different hole layout, but the principle is exactly the same. The design is the same in every other respect, and that's not going to change the flavour of the coffee. You have the Aeropress, which as you can see is exactly the same with a slightly different end shape, and is slightly shorter, but only slightly. It's not a huge difference at all. Interestingly, the plunger that, in fact I recently got a replacement plunger for this, and it is of a silicone material and much more flexible than the original rubber one. I noticed that the plunger on this one is of a very similar, I think this is actually an aftermarket one, but that's by the by. The last plunger replacement I got was like the original rubber one, but this one is actually a silicone-like material, very much like this one, which is interesting to see. And it operates in exactly the same way. The only difference is that the writing and the numbers, obviously going 1 to 3 instead of 1 to 4 on the original, are in red, whereas the original were in gold, I believe, but they've worn away through lots of use, as you can see. So the Aeropress itself is the same size, and you can see there, if I put the cap from this one onto that one, and I put the cap from this one onto that one, you can see that they fit. So that means that the filter papers that you already have, because if you already have one of these, you already have filter papers, will fit accordingly. Then inside here we have one of these, which folds out like so, and this is one of these in a more compact form. It's a little stirring handle, and it folds up for storage use with a nice little indentations to lock the handle in place in both closed and open positions. And finally, inside the cup you have one of these, which is one of these. Slightly different shape, slightly shorter handle, holds the exact same capacity of coffee grounds or coffee beans. So regardless of which you use, you will get the same quantity, which is nice. So that's the contents of the beaker, and then you have the beaker itself, which is a single wall beaker, but it does have these ridges on, which I suspect will help when it holds a hot liquid. And we're actually going to test that, because once I've given this all a quick wash and rinse off, I'm going to brew a coffee into this, and we will see how that goes. The only thing that's kind of not in this kit that's in the original kit is this bit, the little funnel. But let's be honest, who among you using Aeropress out there have ever used this? I've never used this. So that to me is really a waste of time, and in its place you get that and a nice rubber lid, which is infinitely more useful. So I'm going to go and give these a wash. Initial impressions are great. I'm really impressed with this. I'm going to say I'm not really one for giving shout outs unnecessarily, but when you get good service from somebody you've never used before, it is nice to give them a little bit of recognition. And I ordered this from a company called Neighbourhood Coffee. I've no affiliation with them. I've never heard of them before. I just simply had a look around for the Aeropress Go knowing I wanted one. They had a really good price on it and a really great offer because it included a bag of coffee. In addition to that, when I went to order it, I saw another couple of coffees that I liked the look of, so I ordered those as well. I received it very promptly, very well packaged in a sturdy box, and along with it I received this invoice. In addition to the invoice with its printed details on, they also sent this handwritten note. It says, "Hi, thanks for the Aeropress order. Great choice. This will keep you sipping delicious beans. Also, get 10% off your next order with discount code." Did you get that? Good. Enjoy, like, Team Neighbourhood. Now that is a nice little touch, and when a company can take a minute to scribble a little handwritten thank you on their invoice, I think that's a nice touch, and it's worth a mention. So thank you to Neighbourhood Coffee. We're here back in here because the light's a little bit better, but I've got the Aeropress ready with the cup and the coffee, which I've pre-ground because you've all seen coffee being ground, I'm sure. We've got a filter in there that's been pre-wetted. The filter holder, while it is fresh in my memory, I actually have 10 filter papers in there, and I'm confident I could probably squeeze another 5 in easily. So that holds many more filter papers than I thought. So we've measured out the coffee beans, they've been ground, popped in. I've got the kettle here which has just gone off the boil. Now it goes without saying, I don't normally brew coffee in here, I normally do it in the kitchen, and I'm just going to give that a little bit of an agitation. Now I normally, look at that lovely foam Well, that fresh brewed coffee is beautiful. I normally, on the normal AeroPress, fill it up to about the 3 mark as it happens, and then plunge and top up the cup with water. So with this only going up to 3, it's absolutely no problem to me. And a little tip for plunging AeroPress in an effortless manner, it's a little bit harder on this because I'm sort of sat down, but if you kind of rest your elbow on it and just allow that to plunge the coffee through for you. I actually picked that tip up from the inventor of AeroPress himself on a video that I saw, and it works incredibly well and sort of saves your hand when you're trying to force it through. So there we go. And I'm just going to upend that for now because I would normally just obviously eject out the puck, but I can't do that. There's the freshly expressed coffee, and so far so good. I'm going to top that up with a little bit of water as I normally would in my mug. And the reason I wanted to do that straight away is so I can leave that to sit for a little while, so I can test how warm this cup gets and whether it does actually get uncomfortable to hold. So far so good. But we're going to look at this. Now this is the I like big cups and I cannot lie that I mentioned, and this is a particularly nice one. Blackcurrant, vanilla, rhubarb flavour notes. You can most definitely taste the blackcurranty notes in this. My taste buds are not the best in the world. I'm not going to pretend I'm any kind of connoisseur, but I do know what I like when it comes to coffee. As you'll know if you've watched my previous ones, I roast my own coffee, and it's not very often I actually get beans from an independent roaster that I particularly like. These I particularly like. And something interesting to note, I've noticed a bit of a trend recently for these type of coffee bags where they have a pull zip and then a self-seal section here, which is great, but your regular AeroPress scoop has a bit of a problem getting in there to scoop a scoopful of beans, whereas this one, quite handily, as an added side benefit, scoops in there quite nicely, as you can see, and still squeezes out because it's slightly flattened on the sides, so nice little added benefit there. So yes, I can recommend this coffee. Roast date 10th of March 2020. You can see it's very recent. When you're buying from a coffee roaster, from an independent coffee roaster, always look for a roast date, not a best before. A best before is never a good sign. The coffee could be months old already. And the reason I've brought this in here, this is my, I will admit, full disclaimer, I've not actually just used this to grind the beans that are in this cup. I have used the electric one, but this is my travel grinder. This is a Hario Slim grinder. I love this thing. It has conical ceramic burrs. It's years old, and I'm actually just thinking about replacing it because the base is cracked, although it doesn't actually let any coffee grounds out. And the ceramic burrs are starting to look a bit worn now after years and years of use, so I'm not complaining. So if I can get replacement burrs, I'll go that route. If not, I'll just get a new grinder. But what I would like to say is that this, so far, is the best all-in-one travel contraption for coffee that I've seen to date. The only other one that would, or that could have been great, was one that I reviewed some years ago, and that was the Caflano Classic pour over drip with a built-in grinder. And if you saw that review, you'll see that it didn't even pass the first hurdle. The grinder was appallingly bad, and consistently so, which I verified looking at several other units every time I came across one in a shop, and the grinder design was just too poor. There was too much flex to give inconsistent grinds. But getting to the point, the only thing that would make this perfect, absolutely perfect, would be the addition of a little grinder, even if it was only the upper half, sort of like that, and actually fit onto the top of the AeroPress like so, and then you could grind straight into the AeroPress. That would be perfect. I I'm under no illusions that the inventor of Aeropress is going to be sat here watching my video, but on the slim chance that you are, please look into doing something like that with something like the Hario Slim Grinder, because this as a hand grinder is the best hand grinder I've ever used. It's fantastic. It can do from talcum powder fine to blocks of rubble coarse, and the consistency of it is just incredible. It's all plastic with ceramic gears and a metal spindle shaft, and if they can do it, this is why I couldn't understand the other one couldn't, and how they could get it so wrong. But yeah, fantastic grinder. But Aeropress, or anybody working with Aeropress, if you're watching this, please make this but with a built-in grinder, and that would be the 100% perfect solution. So after that talk, grinder beans, etc., I'm touching that, and it's warm, but it's kind of pleasantly warm to the hand. It is not hot in any way, shape or form, and that's water that was probably about 98 degrees. I literally boiled the kettle and brought it in here. Normally it's a regulated kettle with you can set the temperature, and I normally set it to about 95 degrees. However, I set that to boil fully and brought it in and just let it go off the boil, and that, as you can see, is certainly not, you know, hot enough to not be able to hold. So, and the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say, and the drinking in this case. And these beans even taste good out of a plastic cup. And I'm no fan of plastic beakers, but certainly for when you're out and about travelling, trekking, and you're wanting coffee on the go, I will still, of course, be carrying my grinder, because as of yet there isn't an included one. But this will do very nicely indeed. And of course the Aeropress will work conventionally in an ordinary mug. So scores for me, it would have been a perfect 10 out of 10, because it's great, and I love the Aeropress. I love my original Aeropress, and I love this Aeropress, especially for being more compact. It's a great addition, and this will now become my travel unit. It would have been a perfect 10 out of 10, but for the lack of a grinder, and so I will score it a very reasonable, I think, 9 out of 10. Not that it's going to make a great big deal of difference to many people, but if only you could somehow include a burr grinder, then it would be perfect, absolutely perfect. So there you go, there's my overview of the Aeropress Go, the Aeropress but squished down and a bit more go-y. So fabulous, works exactly like the original one. You can utilize the filters, and you'll be able to swap the rubber plunger seals when that's needed, and they do last months. I use mine several times a day, every day, and they last months, and I can highly recommend it. So cheers everybody. Oh, that really is good coffee. If you're wanting to get some nice coffee, go to Neighbourhood Coffee and get some of that. I like big cups, and I cannot lie. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.